Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. Her name is Dr. Vardra Jackson. Dr. Vardra, how are you doing, ma?
I am doing very well, very well. It is sunny here, and the sun always makes me feel warm inside. So I'm doing great.
Yeah, thank you very much. Same here. Thank you so much, Dr. Vedra. Firstly, you are the founder of Living Strong Consulting, and you're also an author and an educator. Can you please, Dr. Vadra, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Dr. Vadra?
So you summed it up in those two words. I am passionate about serving and supporting any type of organization that touches the life of a child. And through my journey of being an actual classroom teacher and then a nonprofit leader, and now a consultant, it has really helped me recognize that if we're going to deeply impact children, we must be willing to look at ourselves as adults. And so I create a very reflective process for adults to explore how well they are healing so that we pass healing on to children.
Yes, I completely agree with you, Dr. Vadra. Children are one of the most important instruments that we definitely need to care for. When we care for children and they groom, definitely bring a very huge impact on them because from childhood, that is when the brain starts to develop. Thank you so much for those insights, Dr. Vadra. And I would like to dive to your book, which is Fearless Conversations with a Limit. Can you please discuss more on that book? And do you also have more books you are planning to write in the coming future, Dr. Vadra?
So, um, Fearless Conversations with the Limitless God is uh, my second book. And the focus of that book is actually unpacking the brain science and connecting it to faith and really understanding how, when we understand how we are designed from the inside out, and we connect it to how God has designed us, it's an opportunity for us to activate the parts of healing that are accessible to us. It is an opportunity for us to recognize that we do not have to live under a cloak of shame, that we are here to live as brilliant, bright human beings, and that we each have an assignment. And instead of operating from a place of fear, we actually can operate from a place of joy. But there are specific steps and there are things that we must be willing to commit into our belief system as well as our daily routines and rituals in order to activate and access the healing and restorative parts of ourselves. That we don't have to be stuck because we've gone through something that doesn't have to define where we're able to go. And my latest book that it was actually released in the beginning of 2025 is Understanding the Roots of Belonging. And it's an exploration of how, when we understand the roots of belonging, belonging overcomes barriers. And when we're leaning in and really being intentional in connecting with one another, in seeking to understand before seeking to be understood, and willing to actually see one another, it's an opportunity for us to authentically create community.
Definitely I agree with you because community is one of a big issue in our time today, and it's definitely one of
Mhm.
a very big self-development and self-interest. But thank you so much, Dr. Vedra, for those insights on those book. Thank you so much, ma. I would also like to dive to this conference, which is the pillars of abundant living. From your experience, you have the idea of the seven pillars of abundant living. What do you think are the seven pillars of abundant living, Dr. Vedra? And how do you come to develop this adopt this
Mhm.
framework, Dr. Vedra?
So I'm actually going to answer the second part of the question first, in how I got to the seven pillars. It actually is the beginning or the starting place to my company, Living Strong Consulting. When I went through a dark season in time in which I also was not only emotionally held hostage, mentally held hostage, I was also physically not well. And it was tied to a level of toxic stress in a work environment that really depleted my soul. And I was more committed and afraid of stepping away from it because I was afraid of how would that impact my finances? What would other people think? What would I do? Instead of actually stepping out in my faith and recognizing that as I evolved, it was time for me to go. And toxicity is not where what God had for me. And I stayed there too long, and it literally deteriorated my body and my mind. And as I really allowed myself to heal, I had to have surgery. They had to remove an 18-centimeter tumor from my body. And as I went through that healing, restorative space, I actually began to write down the core principles of Living Strong Consulting. And the very first thing I wrote down were what were the seven pillars in my own journey that helped me recognize if I intentionally integrated and paid attention to these seven things, they have allowed me to stand in strength and stand in my own truth and really remembering my focus. And so those seven pillars, as I developed the framework for my company, were recognizing that we are called to live abundantly in our finances. We are called to live abundantly physically. We're called to be abundant in our relationships, in our mindset, as well as understanding abundance of time, skills, and our faith. And so those are the seven pillars of abundant living that are the foundation to living strong consulting.
And I definitely agree with you with the with the issues you had when to draw the background that also inspired you to get to the point of giving this framework, giving this seven pillars of abundance living, which is faith and other things that would definitely help one when it comes to this life that we're living in currently. And also, I would like to also dive on how you think this pillar also work together. You know, you've given the list, but how do you think it also work together to create a balanced and fulfilling life, Dr. Vedra?
Well, it's interesting that you use the word balance because when I think of the seven pillars, for me, the word is actually harmony. Because sometimes I think when we use the word balance, we have this misconception that everything has to equally create the same amount of space and attention. But the seven pillars are meant to operate in harmony. And with harmony, it means that you're able to prioritize what is most important, sometimes moment by moment, if we're honest. And then other times, really based on what we're called to in the moment. And instead of this unrealistic expectation that I can juggle or balance or keep everything even at the same time, which is unrealistic and sometimes causes insanity in our lives, the seven pillars are about how do we prioritize what is most important in our lives in this particular season, in this how I want to show up in this moment so that I create harmony and I'm able to create a growth plan, or I'm able to really focus on an area that I need to grow in without feeling guilty that I'm not keeping all of them equally at the forefront.
That is very, very inspiring. Definitely, definitely, someone can definitely have a very balanced life when it comes to those thinking, those abundance living. Because when someone have those thinking, definitely, it will definitely bring those balance that someone definitely needs in life. And also, I will, the people who also know, and even I myself also know how it's typically, looks like for someone who are living in it. Like, what do you think a typical they look like for someone who is living in an alignment with the seven pillars of abundance living, Dr. Vedra?
I would say they are allowing themselves to start the day with intention, not hustle. They're starting the day setting intention, being grounded, giving themselves grace, and they are focused on purpose, not just necessarily the um, profit or the following. They're actually focused on what is my purpose for today, because as they start the day, they have started it by setting intention and creating that grounded space that as they rise, they realize that I am a leader and the CEO of my life today. So as I place my feet on the ground, I'm recognizing that I'm going to influence others. So, how will I show up in harmony with the things that align with the integrity that I want to live for?
Definitely having those purpose and definitely having those things definitely works. It helps someone balance in life when it comes even the physical part and also the spiritual part of someone. It definitely helps someone. Even when someone wake up in the morning, having this type of feelings and also this abundance living definitely set a person up to go out
Yes.
and definitely do tremendous, beautiful things every single way they live in. But there could definitely be some parts that you think people struggled with the most. Do you think there is any pillar you find people really struggle with the most, Dr. Vedra?
It's such an individual journey.
Mm.
If I can kind of step outside of the question and come at it a little bit differently, instead of identifying an individual pillar, I would say sometimes it's the process of diving into the pillar that people struggle with, because we operate sometimes in such a culture of hustling and of grinding or trying to run after something, or the fear that we're going to miss something, that hurried mindset actually sabotages the process that's necessary to settle in, to stay focused, to be committed, sometimes to sit still, to be reflective and self-aware. And so the process of settling in, being self aware, willing to self assess where I am in each of those pillars takes time sometimes. And when we're in a hustle and grind mentality or culture, or we think we're going to miss out on something if I'm not rushing to get at something, that sabotages the space or the margin that we allow ourselves to have to be able to take the deeper dive and really begin to self assess where we are and where we need to go.
Hmm. Let's just sum it up. Living a life of calmness. In this life, that busy life that we are, everybody wants to get everything. Everybody wants to do everything, but definitely everyone needs to be calm. Calmness is like a special power on its own. I have to be honest. When someone
Yes.
is calm, in fact,
Breathe.
definitely someone can get anything he or she wants, because that calmness
Yeah.
will be like, I know what I am doing. I think I just have to calm, see what how this works, see how
Mm.
this works, then continue to focus on the right thing and the main thing without no overlooking and just rushing all this, followers. Or no, no, no. Everything just works with calmness. When the calmness is there, then one start to see the one, two, three,
Mm.
400, 200, and definitely it continues to build. It's good. As I agree with you, it could take time. Definitely take time. It could take a year. It could take 2 years. But definitely, if the calmness is there and the patience is there, definitely the body will definitely get what it definitely wants. Anything, honestly speaking, it's just very important. But it's the truth. But it's just how it is in this life that we are. Honestly speaking, that is just how this world is. So last, I would also like to dive to the point of spiritual and also the emotional part, Mrs. Dr. Vedra. How do you think the emotional and the spiritual pillars also differ in terms of daily practice and also self awareness, Dr. Vedra?
Mm. You put it so beautifully just a moment ago. It's accessing that calm. So for me, The spiritual pillar is about your belief. The emotional or mindset pillar is about your regulation. So, regulation is when you are able to set in your body and access calm. When you're able to emotionally regulate or emotionally shift your mindset, you're actually able to better set your focus. Emotional regulation is when you're able to move from survival brain to your intellectual brain. Emotional regulation is when you're able to move from a place of fear to creativity. That emotional regulation is that barometer of calm that you just so beautifully spoke about. Now, the spiritual pillar is about what you believe. What's at your core belief that drives how you show up daily? In your peace or even in your struggle? What are you believing about who you are, who your God is, and how you are, how you have been placed on this planet? So spiritually, that's your belief. Emotionally, that's your regulation.
Spiritual belief, emotional regulation. That shows that the spiritual and the emotional definitely works hand in hand. If the emotional is working
Yes.
well, then
Mhm.
the spiritual definitely works well. And definitely, if someone can just work on those emotions and also the spiritual part and definitely build ourselves with patience and time, then definitely doors start to open. And definitely, a lot of things definitely start to emerge. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
those beautiful insights. We also
Mhm.
also agree that this life that we are, is just a life that we need some calmness before we could get through a lot of things, because technology can really mislead someone in various ways. So definitely that calmness is very important in this time. That time we could be misled and someone gonna tell you, no, you're going that wrong way. But now, the internet, anything the internet brings out, definitely with what someone would need. But that calmness will definitely know where and what someone needs to do. So it's very, very important in the life we are currently. I have to be honest with you, Dr. Verdra. Thank you so much for those insights. And lastly, Dr. Verdra, there's a question I normally ask during the end of the show. From our forefathers, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our forefathers' time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Dr. Vedra,
Mhm.
what do you think that thing will be, Dr. Vedra?
Remembering how strong we are, that we are connected to people who, at their very soul, walk this earth in strength. And sometimes we forget that strength is in our DNA, that fortitude is in our DNA. And going back to what you just said, when we are so focused on the hustle or watching other people, we forget who we are and who has come before us, and that the very strength that was in them is in our DNA. And we have to remember our core strength, especially in these times.
Definitely, I agree with you. Strength is definitely important, but to definitely have that strength, definitely someone have to have these pillars, this calmness, and also this type of spiritual and emotional part in life, so that someone can get that strength to also know the purpose and what someone definitely needs to focus in life. It might be little, it might be big, no matter how small or big it is. All we just need to make sure is that we have to have this fulfilling, this embracing, and this happy life that we have tried for in this life we've come for. It doesn't mean that we should just go, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big or how small it is. We just have to continue to live this life in a way that we do know that we are okay, and we definitely know how we could be balanced, calm, and also know how we could improve and grow gradually with the way time goes. And that is a very, very powerful insight. That is the truth. It is just the
Mhm.
truth. Anyone who just have to listen to this is just going to definitely be impacted in one way or the other. Honestly speaking, it is just the truth. But honestly, we have to say the truth is very bitter, but it's the truth in our time today. I also want
Mhm.
to use this opportunity to thank you for the opportunity and the time you've given me on speaking on these 7 pillars of abundance living. Thank you so much, Dr. Vedra.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my heart work. I tell people all the time, this is my heart work, and you've allowed me to share it with you and your listeners on your platform. So, first, thank you.
All right. So have a wonderful day, Dr. Vedra. Have a wonderful. Bye bye.
You as well. Bye bye.